Good afternoon from Copenhagen. Welcome to the webinar, How to Implement and Finance Cities' Efforts for Energy Efficiency Transitions in the Middle East and North Africa, hosted by the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency. My name is Valeria, and I'm the Research Assistant at the Copenhagen Center and the moderator for this webinar. A couple of things before we move to the main content of our webinar. This webinar is going to be about 90 minutes long, including time for Q&A at the end. In case you cannot stay until the end or want to get back to our presentations, all the material and recordings of the whole webinar will be available online in a few days on the Copenhagen Center's Knowledge Management System. And we have many more other webinars and information there. Have a look. Now a few things about the Copenhagen Center. The Center conducts research and advisory activities in the field of energy efficiency and serves as energy efficiency hub for the Sustainable Energy for All initiative. The Center has an established network of global, regional, and national partners with a broad range of stakeholders to help accelerate the implementation of energy efficiency activities. On a regular basis, the Copenhagen Center is conducting webinars. All material, including recordings and presentation from previous webinars, can be found at the Copenhagen Center's Knowledge Management System under the e-learning section. The material of today's webinar will be uploaded shortly. Now I would like to briefly introduce you to the speakers of today's webinar. Olgu Okumus is the head of sector Energy and Climate Actions Division at the Union for the Mediterranean. Christina Haidar is an attorney at the Haidar Lawfirm. Meqdad is a project manager at UNDP Jordan. Finally, I would like to inform you that you can send us your questions during the presentation, and we will do our best to answer to as many as we can at the end of the webinar. Please do not forget to mention the name of the panelists that the question is for. Now we can start with the first presentation by Olgu.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Olgu Okumus from Union for the Mediterranean Secretariat. As has been mentioned earlier, I'm the head of energy sector at the Union for the Mediterranean. And here I am to share with you the program that Union for the Mediterranean undertook to support cities in order to implement their efforts in energy efficiency and the climate change. During my presentation, I will give you insights about our observation, analysis, about the state of play in the region, how cities, what are the conditions for cities to implement efforts in energy transition, what energy transition means in the region, and what are the possible technical opportunities for them to implement these actions. Of course, I will also highlight different technical and political barriers that those actors face when they want to implement their actions in energy efficiency. Let's get started. First of all, I would like to emphasize the mandate of the Union for the Mediterranean Secretariat in the area of energy, especially for the area of supporting local authorities' efforts in energy efficiency and the climate change. Here I share with you a short paragraph from the UFM Ministerial Declaration on Energy, signed by the Ministers of Energy of 43 members of our organization. The paragraph clearly states that the organization has mandate to develop programs and a framework for promoting and deploying renewable energy and energy efficiency measures at local authorities level. In the frame of this mandate, that in the last 3 years, Union for the Mediterranean has been working on identifying the situation of local authorities in the region and to explore different ways of support them in their actions. here I will share with you with a general overview of energy transition in the Middle East and North African countries, which are Union for the Mediterranean, Southern and Eastern Mediterranean members. As you know, in addition to that, all EU member states are also members of the Union for the Mediterranean, but the information we'll share here concerns only Southern and Eastern Mediterranean countries. And then I will continue with an insight on local authorities in our region, available technical solutions for project implementation, new forms of decentralized service delivery models that we identify and we consider efficient and effective in our region. And that's why I'm very happy to share this webinar with Meqdad and Christina, who are two valuable experts from two different member states of our organization, who helped us to understand and to discover different models, very interesting models that they developed in their countries. And at the end, I will also give some information about the regional cooperation and the way that Union for the Mediterranean supports the process with the initiative we call energy transition at local. So energy transition in the Mediterranean, energy transition in Middle East and North African countries. So in the region, the energy transition is an economic necessity. It is, but unfortunately, it is considered more as an opportunity to attract investment than a paradigm change in resource management or independence or a climate change commitment. And the price of energy services play a crucial role in creating incentives to stimulate energy transition in the region. Because unfortunately, Mediterranean countries, so Southern and Eastern Mediterranean countries, continue to use energy subsidies as a populist policy. But however, a small group of active and willing local authorities have emerged in the North African and Middle East and North African countries. And they're interested to take actions. And then even though they suffer from weak planning or some operating capacity issues and limited access to financial and human resources. In the region, the energy transition, as I mentioned, is as the concept involves renewable energy and energy efficiency efforts. In the region, the demand for energy will increase 7% in next 25 years, according to data of International Energy Efficiency, which means that even in the most optimistic scenario, the region who is already facing an energy scarcity will have more demand for energy. Like some countries, some Mediterranean countries, like Morocco and Lebanon, are importing today 95% their energy. So that's definitely an issue, but unfortunately, it's a business opportunity and not from the climate change perspective. I would like to, and another point that I would like to share here with you, that is that some countries have shared, some Mediterranean countries have announced some ambitious objectives to future increase the current use of renewable energy in their country. I think the most important example that we can give here is Algeria's very ambitious program. But however, there is, how I can mention that, like there's an ambitions program. There are some energy efficiency actions. I think that's important is like Turkey's very ambitious energy efficiency program is $1 million saving by 2033. This is the in residence. This is the objective of Turkey, and 10 billion in USD in industry. But however, the Turkey is mentioned by EIB International Energy Agency, as a country with an increasing energy intensity. So there are projects in renewable energy. There are ambitions programs. There are programs for energy efficiency. However, in the situation, there's a contradiction with the objectives in the ambition and the implementation. Of course, that has like multiple causes, but two main causes that we identified in our experience is one is governance vulnerabilities, and the second is energy pricing policies. I just want, and that directly affects, of course, local authorities' actions in this area. That's why I wanted to share with you these two information. As you can see in this graphic, that there isn't any arithmetic correlation between countries' GDP or any other economic indicators and the price of electricity in the country. And another figure here is the price of the, this is about the country's GDP, and here another graphic is about the price of the oil in the country, and then their economic situation. And several times in the several recommendation reports, International Energy Agency recommended to Southern and Mediterranean countries, region countries, to progressively remove energy price subsidies to improve energy efficiency. However, today, at a similar price level, there is still a wide disparity among countries in electricity consumption per household. Indeed, this energy tariffs and this high-level energy subsidies doesn't make the environment suitable for energy transition. However, there are efforts. I prefer really underline what are the limits and the challenges that the actors face in the region. And when we come to the issue of the local authorities, of course, that's important to mention here that the global issue of urbanization remains a challenge for Mediterranean region today. So around 60% of the total population of the southern and eastern Mediterranean countries are living in urbanized areas. However, among these countries, we cannot tell that there is a systematic definition of local governance. I can give you some examples to show how big is the variety of the size of cities and their competency and roles in administration. For example, in Egypt, a 70 million population country, today there are 243 local authorities. But another Mediterranean country, Turkey, with 73 million people, has more than 4,000 local authorities. And then the country like Morocco, with 30 million population, has more than 1,479 municipalities, and that in addition to that, there's 49 provinces and 16 regions. Indeed, so there isn't a systematic definition of local governance, and there isn't a competency or role of administrations are not always comparable. And then when we come to the technical and the human resource capacity of local authorities in North African and Middle Eastern countries, we see that the main finance source of these countries, of the local authorities in these countries, is not different than the OECD member countries' resources. They are mainly transfers from the central government, and also some local revenues, rentals, tax revenues, real estate, and other taxes. However, their capacity to collect this revenue is really different than the OECD, and the figures that represent these revenues are really different than OECD member countries' figures. Very fast, but to be very quick, I can give you that the share of the local revenues, so local authorities, local governments expenditures in OECD member countries reach up to 20% of the GDP. However, the like approximately the average in the Middle East and North African countries, the average expenditure of the local governments, subnational governments, if I may, like group all these authorities on one group, that doesn't reach more than 5% of the GDP. So 20% of GDP versus 5% of the GDP. And or if you want to compare numbers in terms of budgets, in Morocco, for example, or like not Morocco, but like an average, I will give you an average of budget per habitant of a southern and eastern Mediterranean country, of a city, an average budget is approximately 100 euros, yes, 100 euros per habitant per year. Although this is above 1,000 euro per habitant per year in countries like Spain and France. So in this circumstances, local authorities don't have don't have. So there is less limited budget. There is a serious problem of collecting taxes, and in most countries, local authorities don't have the legal autonomy to work with domestic commercial banks. So exception is Turkey, or financial institution or some donors. As consequences, in the world of this, like in this limited world of the means, most of them are unable to pay sometimes their employees, or they lack middle management civil servants with technical skills to implement new creative actions. And I'm sure Meqdad will give us an excellent insight with great concrete examples on the field that he has a good experience. So how they can find, so how they can in the absence of this sufficient self-revenue taxation and the credits and the human resources, actually local authorities must opt to receive credit from state-owned municipal banks or hope for grants from international donors. But that creates another dependency cycle that I will later give and highlight. So, okay, there are all these limits, but there are still actions implemented in our region. So what are the technical solutions that we find to implement and how things are going on? At first, it's important to mention, and that's very promising, that some bilateral efforts for technically supporting local authorities exist in the region. French Agency for Development, European Investment Bank, World Bank are leading very important programs tackling with the issue of the urban cohesion, regional disparities, and the renewable energy transition efforts, mostly from the climate change perspective. And in the specific area of energy transition, USAID and the European Union are very important, have like bilateral cooperations agency who support programs. So EU-funded Covenant of Mayors program provided the technical support with programs like Cleaner Energy Saving Mediterranean Cities, SESMED, and the Sustainable Urban Demonstration Projects, SUDEP. Or USAID has, since 2012, implementing the Building Alliance for Local Advancement, Development and Investment, so the so-called Baladi program. And with these programs, actually, or the Swiss government has also this important initiative in Tunisia. All these programs have providing some technical support for planning. They're creating pilot actions, starting energy planning, implementing pilot actions. However, they also create a system of dependency on international aids and grants and fundings when they are not, of course, when they are not accompanied by national policies that may create an ecosystem for the multiplication of these actions and development of long-term policies. So these programs are very important for the region, but when they are not accompanied by national programs, we are afraid they can create an ecosystem of dependency. So what will make that we will break this path and then we can go to the institutionalization of energy transition? We know that the non-traditional actors, non-traditional actions like energy transition, especially in the area of local authorities, require the new forms of decentralized service delivery models. Because the action is new, because capacities are limited and the conditions and the resources are limited, that there is a need for new forms of models. And PPP, so public-private partnership models, is one of them, and it is one of the most important. And that's why I'm thankful to Christina to spare us this time to share with us the experience of the PPP framework in Lebanon and how cities can implement that. Of course, it's not limited on that. They are we identifying in the region different, very creative solutions for new forms of service delivery models, and Meqdad will share some of them with us, I am sure. But even though when we have these PPP models implemented in the countries, we acknowledge that for the improvement, the multiplication of this kind of models requires no doubt, and it's like what I'd like to mention, like last but not least, but that's really one of the key elements of the success for us is the improvement of national legal framework, the detailed national legal framework for PPPs, and the constant and the legal technical support from independent organization dedicated to local authorities negotiation with a private company. And again, I'm sure Christina will provide us very interesting information about the initiative that they undertook under the Platform for Progress initiative in Lebanon. An example of this kind of institutions to provide the PPCs is in France. There is the National Federation of Communities is a network and provide support in different service delivery models in the to local authorities in their PPPs. Or in Turkey, Union of Municipalities plays the similar role under the in the frame of the Law 5355. Besides that, of course, regional organizations with a clear mandate are right partners to support and supervise and to enhance this process. And Union for the Mediterranean assumes this role in the region. That's in this framework that we launched last year, the UFM Initiative for Energy Transition at Local. The initiative is built on 3 pillars: the peer-to-peer dialogue among local authorities who are undertaking efforts in this area. And we built a database for actions to provide incentives and inspirative examples to local authorities who would like to implement actions. And also Union for the Mediterranean has a capacity building program for technical officers who are working in this area and in Southern and Eastern Mediterranean countries. And I will stop here in the question and answer session. I will be happy to give more information about the Union for the Mediterranean's initiative for energy transition at local. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. Please allow me at the beginning to thank the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency and the Union for the Mediterranean for organizing this beneficial webinar and for allowing me to be part of it. I will be talking about public-private partnerships in Lebanon, specifically highlighting the role of municipalities in applying the PPP model. But at the beginning, let me give a quick brief about the history of PPP framework law in Lebanon. Lebanon's experience with PPP is not new. It dates back to the 1880s with concessions. We also witnessed several PPP experiences, but without a specific legal framework. This was until the ratification of the Privatization Law number 228, year 2000, which established the Higher Council for Privatization, HCP. 2 years later, 3 sectorial privatization laws were ratified, regulating the telecommunication sector, civil aviation, and the electricity sector. But unfortunately, none of these laws were implemented due to not appointing the regulatory authorities needed according to these laws. Most of the PPP implemented experiences were criticized due to several reasons, but mainly to lack of standardized project preparation processes and to the absence of inadequate tender procedures. From here, it was crucially needed to have a global and a PPP framework law. So it was required to have a PPP framework that promotes transparency, attracts reputable companies, and at the same time preserves the public rights. And indeed, after a long period, this long-awaited law was ratified in September 2017 under number 48, and which is called the Law Regulating Public-Private Partnerships. This law, the new law, is considered as a step closer to global standards. It is a comprehensive legal framework for PPP projects. It ensures transparency and competitiveness. And this law modified the name of the HCP to be the HCPP, Higher Council for Privatization and Public-Private Partnerships. With 18 articles, the new law established the regulatory outline of the contracts and the government will use with a clear procurement tendering system. The provisions of the new law shall govern all PPP projects undertaken by the state and all public institutions, with the exception of municipalities and union of municipalities, which may choose to apply this law or not. So, municipalities were left free to apply this law or not. If you want to elaborate into the municipal experience with PPP, it is important to highlight that municipalities are able to implement PPP projects under their municipal law, which holds the number 118 and dates back to 1977. According to this law, municipalities in Lebanon enjoy legal personality as well as financial and administrative independence, and they enjoy a broadened authority and wide range of functions. But unfortunately, they are unable to fulfill even the most basic duties, since they are administratively constrained and fiscally dependent, and many of them lack the know-how. So in order for municipalities to keep pace with increased local demands and provide local development in their area, the involvement of the private sector in local development is considered as crucial and mandatory. Many municipalities have already implemented the PPP model in several projects related to energy and climate change issues. We can say that, for example, to highlight the case of the Municipal Union of Jezzine, which is located in South Lebanon, the Union of Jezzine has invested in several ecotourism projects in partnership with the private sector. One of these important projects is La Maison de la Forêt. Al-Ghabairi Municipality too, which is located in Beirut suburbs, has jointly invested in several projects with the private sector, including a sports stadium, disaster council, and health center, among other examples. The municipal PPP experiences were either kind of based on personal initiatives, and other experiences were donor-oriented. If we take the Kabricha model village, Kabricha is located in South Lebanon in Marjayoun Kaza. It is considered as a perfect example on how municipalities and the donor can come together to find sustainable solutions. In Lebanon, we suffer from power shortage and blackouts, but Kabricha residents enjoy 24 hours, 7 days a week due to solar farm that was funded by the EU and implemented by UNDP and managed by Kabricha municipality. Smart meters were installed to support around 550 homes from green source of energy, and it is considered as a great example to solve power shortage by using net metering system and decreasing carbon emission and saving in the electricity bill. Another example of solid waste management applied by the municipality of Bikfaya, located in Mount Lebanon area, and other municipality like Klai'a municipality, located in south of Lebanon, involves a waste management center treating more than 8 tons of daily waste sorted garbage from source and involving management by the municipalities. All the above mentioned examples created employment opportunities as well, boosted local production, and proven to be successful in generating revenues for both municipalities and the union. And the examples mentioned that were applied by the donor could be replicated in other municipalities because they are considered as success stories, but through PPP models. For example, Kabricha village model could be replicated, but instead of the support of the donor, the municipality could be supported through the PPP model by the private sector. Not to forget to mention and highlight the main incentives offered by Banque du Liban, which offers subsidized loans. Unfortunately, municipalities in Lebanon are not allowed to target loans immediately by themselves due to bureaucratic constraints. But through the PPP model, the private sector may target these subsidized loans on behalf of the municipality, which in order to implement energy and renewable energy efficiency and renewable energy projects and all kind of environmental projects which are covered by these subsidized loans. And through this partnership, the municipalities will be benefiting through an indirect way from these subsidized loans. Last but not least, I would like to highlight the efforts of a civil initiative which is called the Platform for Progress, that was established this year in Jounieh with the support of the city of Jounieh and the Union of Kisrwan to advocate for more PPPs in Lebanese cities. These initiatives aim to contribute the PPP enabling environment through awareness raising and capacity building activities for cities. Hopefully this initiative will cover all Lebanese municipalities and will be a kind of a focal point with other cities in the Mediterranean. Membership with this platform is open to all Lebanese cities willing to develop more projects for progress, especially projects that utilize the PPP model for climate actions. I'm proud to be a member of this platform, and besides me, there are several international and national experts and consultants. We offer capacity building and awareness raising activities tailored for cities. The P4P experts will offer awareness raising activities to cities, helping municipalities and local government units develop their own bankable PPP projects. The platform will also be equipped with manuals, project references, and templates for PPPs to serve as a source and resource for interested cities. Also, the platform invites innovative entrepreneurs offering solutions for cities' climate change challenges to join us to help cities identify what solutions are available to them, for whom, and to correctly evaluate their localized value. Finally, I would like to wrap up and emphasize about the importance of PPP in Lebanon. For this reason, after mentioning all the legal framework and highlighting about the importance of the new law and about the municipal experiences that were considered and are considered as success stories, I would like to encourage the donors and the reputable companies to come and invest in Lebanon at the governmental level and specifically at the municipal level in implementing PPP projects. We can serve as a facilitator, as a center, as a platform, and hopefully we can have more success stories and replicate these success stories in different areas. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, Valeria, Olgu, and Christina, and all the esteemed audiences. My name is Meqdad Rababa. I am from Jordan. I am project manager for UNDP project. Today, I'm very delighted for having me here to be with Copenhagen to share with you our strategy for the project that's been funded by the GEF, Global Environment Facility, and implemented by UNDP. The implementer partner is the Greater Amman Municipality as a city, as a local authority. Today, I will share with you the basics informations about the projects and how the project is going to be implemented across the city level, and the relations between the energy efficiency and sustainable urbanization, which is the related to the mitigations and adaptations. Resource efficiency, the name of the project is Sustainable Urbanization and Resource Efficiency. This project is being implemented, as I mentioned before, by UNDP and funded by GEF. But before I will start, I will start with you with the agenda of my presentation for today. The first things I will talk about briefly about the development changes that have been facing by Jordan and Amman specifically. The second thing I will mention the regulatory reforms that's been adopted by the government of Jordan. And on the local level, the achievements that have been achieved by the Greater Amman Municipality and the GAMS approach. Then I will talk about our project by UNDP, which is Sustainable Urbanization and Resource Efficiency. I will start with the first session about development changes that have been faced by the government of Jordan since 2008 up to 2018. Actually, the last 10 years, it was very challenging years for Jordan and specifically for Amman, because the 2008 we faced the international economic crisis, and during the 2011 we faced the what's called Arab Springs and the political turbulences in the Arab countries, mainly in our adjacent country like Syria and the other adjacent like Iraq. And 2018, we are still suffering from the impact from these crises. The first things that we facing the population growth, the normal growth of the city of Amman, it's expanding and it's increasing rapidly as a population growth by the Jordanian. But the successive influxes of the refugees from the adjacent countries, and we have also challenges for the Jordan imports 96% of its oil and gas from Iraq and from Saudi Arabia. That's why we are facing a problem of producing the electricity that has a huge effect on the carbon emissions. And also we have the water insecurity. From the table, if you have a look at the table, you can find that from 2007 to 2015, the table shows that the electricity consumptions are increasing, if you can say, like exponentially. the gigawatts for the households is increasing up to 2015, and also for the industrial, commercial, water pumping, and street lighting. That's give you enough indication that we are facing a huge demand on the electricity. So the government of Jordan, they have to solve this issue in order to solve the problem of the carbon emissions and the climate change issues. Development changes. Electricity consumption is increasing rapidly due to the, as I mentioned, the increasing the economic activities and the rise of living standards, expanding use of space heating and cooling, the influxes of refugees from the other cities. Also, the households are the main recipient of energy subsidies by amount 350 million JD, which is approximately around $425 million. That's a huge number. It has a huge financial burden on the government of Jordan. Also, water pumping issue is very challenging issue by the government of Jordan, because Jordanian, they are pumping the water from the southern of Jordan. It's around 350 kilometers from Amman, the capital of Jordan. And it shares for the pumping electricity about 15% for the total electricity consumptions. The street lights also had a big issue. It's not actually a big issue, but it's affecting the situation, because we are trying, as economic development, we are trying to switch on the lights and expand the using of street lights for the whole and major streets between the cities. That's the number is expected to be increased between the cities of Jordan, like Amman to Irbid, like Amman to Al-Karak, which is around 200 kilometers from the capital of Jordan, Amman. Now, the regulatory frameworks that have been achieved by the government of Jordan in order to face the mentioned challenges, actually many reforms on the regulatory frameworks on the policy. The first things that's been published by the government of Jordan, which is the Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Law number 13. It has been published by 2013, and this law gives the frameworks for the local governments and the Jordan in order to deal with the issues related to the renewable energy and energy efficiency. The other reforms, the National Green Growth Action Plan by the government of Jordan, and the Jordan National Energy Efficiency Action Plan, NEAP2. Actually, this NEAP2 is focusing on 15% reductions in the CO2 emissions. Also, the things that is important related to our topic today, which is the government of Jordan established what is called JAREEF. JAREEF stands for Jordan Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Fund. This fund is under the umbrella of Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. These funds give the umbrella for all the initiatives in Jordan related to renewable energy and to subsidize all the projects related to the energy efficiency. And also another initiative related to the legislation, which is the bylaw number 73 on regulating the procedure and means of conserving energy and improving its efficiency. Also, the Jordan nationally determined contributions by UNFCCC related to the climate change, which is about 1.5 reductions in GHG emissions by 2030 and 20 to 12.5% upon availability of international climate finance. The things related to JAREEF is very important, but during going through the details of the type of the fund, we can find that JAREEF is not enough. Thus, we have to think on other initiatives in order to support the operation of the JAREEF. Before we start with my projects, I have to mention the sustainability plan by Greater Amman Municipality and its vision. Amman and Greater Amman Municipality published a vision for 2025. It has to be green and sustainable city. Meanwhile, it has to maintain its heritage and multicultural city. That's why we have to focus on the development of a city not to focus only on the issues related to the investment, but also to maintain the heritage and the culture of the city. As you see here, you can find the area of Amman is around 795 square kilometer. In Amman, we can find the greenery area is only 1 square kilometer around. This is actually it's a correct number, but it gives indication that the municipality, they have to focus on the green area and open spaces. The populations of Amman, as I mentioned before, is around 4 million, which is a huge number for a small country like Jordan, and relatively from the influxes of the refugees from the Syrian and from the Iraqi. The gardens of Amman in Jordan, Amman is around 7 square kilometers. The purpose of the project, we will go through the projects, which will focus on the building, but I will mention later on. Okay. Now, before Greater Amman municipality received the funds from JEF and the UNDP, the UNDP prepared a study about the achievements of the government of Jordan and the local authority in order to see the what is called a serious step from the country, from the local authority, in order to go through it. So before they are supporting our city, they have to check your mitigations action. That's why the GAMS received the funds from UNDP and JEF, because in the last 10 years, the Greater Amman municipality developed what is called Green Building Guide. Actually, it's a guide, not mandatory, which means that this guide has to be implemented based on the acceptance of the owner of the project. If he accepts the ideas of the green building, so he can implement it, but it's not mandatory. That's why it's directly relative to GAM. In order to encourage the use of the green building, they delivered what's called incentives. Incentives, which means it should be financial incentives. But for developing countries like Jordan, we cannot offer direct funds like banks or like what is called grants, but we have to deliver incentives like what is called density bonus or extra area based on the zoning regulation. That's maybe an intelligent solution in order to compensate for applications of the green building, which has effect on increasing the capital cost of the buildings. And awareness campaigns that has been launched by Greater Amman municipality in order to encourage the developers, the owners, the citizens of Amman to adopt the Jordan Green Building Guide. Also, another achievements by the GAMS regarding the mitigations plan, which is related to the transportation and the waste. The government of the Greater Amman municipality also gave the permissions to license what is called electrical as a taxi, and also to provide a charging station in order to encourage the people to use less pollutant transportation system. And also under construction right now, the project which is called the Bus Rapid Transit BRT, in order to encourage the mass transportation. And by the way, the BRT is going to function in 2021. It will be ready for the functioning and the operational, and the buses will be electric buses. That's a good achievements by the government, by the Greater Amman municipality, in order to encourage less pollutant transportation system. Also, another projects, biogas projects, waste to energy projects around, and the solar PV projects around 80 megawatt in order to compensate the electricity consumptions by the street lights and all the facilities related to Greater Amman municipality. Also replacing the street lights from high pressure sodium to LED, what is called to LED. By the end of 2019, all Amman street, the major street, the minor street, will be lighted by LED, and you will not find, even in the gardens, even in the playgrounds, even in the municipal buildings, you will see LED instead of the high pressure. That's expected to minimize the consumptions of the electricity by around 50% from the electrical consumption by Greater Amman municipality bill. The achievements, also other achievements, as I mentioned, related to the density bonus. This is what is called the density bonus, which means that the zoning regulations is giving you the permissions to build this area. But in order to compensate for, if you are going to do the project based on the green building criteria, and it will cost you, for example, 10 to 15% from the capital cost of the building. So the legislations by the GAM, Greater Amman Municipality, change in order to additional percentage to the original floor area ratio. By the way, if you need any explanation or more details about how we can implement what is called the concept of floor area ratio according to the zoning, because it has a lot of mathematical equation, I can provide you later to the audience and to you, Valeria, in order to share it with the all audience. The objectives of this concept is to compensate the owner from extra capital cost, okay, from the implementation of the green building. That's very important issue related to how to finance the energy efficiency transitions, because I'm respecting all the issues, all the initiatives related to the public-private partnerships and for the international grants. But actually, this is good. For example, PP project is good for example, what is called the renewable energy projects, because you know you can share with the private sector to establish what is called the PV projects as a wheeling system, and you can deduct the amount of the electrical bill from the end user. Based on 10 years or 15 years, according to what is called the power purchase agreement. This is good solution, but related to the energy efficiency, the funding or the BP projects, from my perspective, I think it's not going to be success, because you have to work on the energy efficiency inside the buildings, what is called how to minimize the consumptions, and mainly for the heatings or space heatings and cooling. Implementing thermal insulation, implementing what is called the LED lighting, and the what is called also for the HVAC system, heating, air conditioning, and air conditioning system. That's why we have to focus on our project as a density bonus. It's going to be success from my perspective. Now, in order to start the project, before we start the project as with GAM, we have to address the certain barriers. And I think the barriers that we are facing in Jordan, the same in Lebanon, the same in Tunisia, the same in Morocco, the same in other cities related to the Mediterranean, which is the lack of assessment tools for optimized climate resilience. We still have, as a developed countries, we still have any assessment tools for the climate resilience and how to deal with the climate change. Also, the second barrier, which is lack of tools for enforcing, because enforcing, which means implementing what is called energy efficiency codes, okay, in GAM. Also, the awareness and information, lack of awareness and information by the citizens of Jordan, citizens of Amman, by lack of awareness by consultants, contractors, even the suppliers for the green economy. The second, fourth barrier, which is the technical capacity, as I mentioned, for how to implement the issues related to energy efficiency. And last but not least, which is the lack of fiscal incentives. This is very important related to our topic today. Now, what is SURE? SURE stands for Sustainable Urbanization and Resource Efficiency. This is our project, and I am the project manager to deal with this project. The systematic approach for sustainable urbanization and resource efficiency for the city of Amman. The amount of the fund is around $2.64 million, a grant by a direct grant trust fund by Global Environment Facility, and 22 million as a co-financing in-kind contributions from the government of Jordan, Greater Amman Municipality, and the private sectors, and also for the UNDP. The duration of this project is 60 months. And implementing partner will be Greater Amman Municipality with other stakeholders like Ministry of Planning, Ministry of Electricity and Mineral Resources, and other stakeholders. The project consists of main 4 components. The first component, which is the urban sustainability planning tools and benchmark, and I'm going to through the details of the right now. The second component, which is strengthening the Greater Amman Municipality, the enabling framework for low carbon buildings and street lighting. The third component, which is the performance-based GHG monitoring frameworks for low carbon building and street light, which is the MRV system. And the fourth component, which is target proof of concept mitigation interventions, which is the pilot projects that we have to start in order to measure the MRV system for the mitigations of our projects. Now, the first component, which is the urban sustainability. Before we start with adaptation, we have to review what is called Amman Master Plan. Amman Master Plan has been published in 2008, and after 10 years, I think it's a good time right now to review and update the master plan based on the challenges that faced by the government of Jordan for the refugees and for the international crisis and the political disturbances. So we will start our project by to review and update the master plan. Then after that, we will try to make like what's called a gap analysis, SWOT analysis, and benchmarking with other developed cities in order to update the master plans according to the international standards. After that, we have to develop what is called sustainability plan. The sustainability plan, it's a huge concept, so we cannot go through any sustainable plan, but the project document actually it guided us how to develop sustainability plan. It mentioned that there is a platform which is called the Global Platform for Sustainability City. It's being funded by Jeff and the World Bank. They guided how any cities in the world can implement the sustainability plan based what is called USF methodology, Urban Sustainable Framework Methodology. This methodology will help us. It can be customized to any city around the world. Thus, if we have to follow up this methodology in order to develop sustainability plan. It has a lot of indicators, how to collect the data, how to deal with the data related to the energy, water flow, and everything, and how to diagnose the situation in the current city right now, and how to implement the gap analysis, how to develop the sustainability plan. With the sustainability plan, there is what is called financial strategy. This strategy will help the city how to adopt and how to fund implementation of the sustainability plan. For example, if we are talking about the city of Amman, like 700 square kilometer, we can find a problem related to the urbanization on the land use during or using the what is called the heritage area. We're using the open space area type of land use, the intensification, all the issues related to the urban planning. If you want to implement, even for the infrastructure and transportation, if you want to implement the financial strategy, is going to help us how to deal with the expanding the city and metropolitan city in order to finance and fund for the expansions according to the sustainable plan issues. Also, another issue we are facing in Amman and in other cities of Jordan, which is the data. We don't have adequate data, and even if we have the data, we don't have central data. That's why the projects will tackle this problem. We have to quantify all the energy, water, and material flow, which is the waste, solid waste material across the city of Amman by what is called here Amman Urban Observatory. Actually, this is an existing department. It's already existed in Amman, but it's not been effectively working according to the standards. That's why we are here as a project. We'll try to strengthen the data analysis and reporting according to the what is called Global World Center for City Data, and according to the standards, we try to quantify all the energy and water flow. Because without data, you cannot judge on the situation of the city. How is the MRV system? How the climate change? How the issues related to the CO2 emissions? So we want to build up a huge data and to be strengthened by the Amman Urban Observatory in order to this will give us help for the legislation or the decisions to expand the city based on the data. And also awareness program for the sustainability plan. This is very important to share with the citizens of Amman the decisions in order to share with the private sector, share with the private sector all the issues. The second component is talking about enabling framework for low carbon building. Now, in the first component, we've talked about the city as as adaptation plan, but now we are talking about here in the component, we will tackle the issues related to the mitigation, which is the low carbon buildings. As I mentioned, we have already codes, which is mandatory. It has to be mandatory actually, but it's unfortunately it's been implemented on the drawings, on the design, but on the actual construction projects, nobody from the contractor or even the consultant is observing the guides or the implementations of the codes. For example, thermal insulation, you cannot find any insulated buildings. It's even it's mentioned in the drawings, but in the construction, no, you will not find it. That's why the project is going to deal with this issue. It's a very huge, important issue, because thermal insulation is expected to minimize the consumption of the electrical consumption of the building space, heat building, by 40 to 50%. But before we start that, we have to establish what is called energy unit for technical inspections. This has to be under the umbrella of GAMS organization. So we've received acceptance from the GAMS mayor of Amman to establish what is called the energy unit. The energy unit has to be established, and institutional strengthening of the energy unit, we can help them by the capacity building of the inspectors, by providing them the equipment needed to the inspection, and in order to check the use of the codes related to the thermal insulation and energy efficiency codes. Also, we have to update the energy codes also. This is our mandate as a project, and develop, this is a very important issue. We will develop what is called retrofit building guidelines. Retrofit building guidelines, this is same like a code, but it's a guideline, which means that it's not mandatory. Why? Because here the codes for the new construction building, but here we have to deal with the existing building as a huge mass of buildings in Amman, and in order to minimize the consumption. That's why we have to deal with these issues with the related to the how to finance this problem. We have also to develop programs, accreditation program for ISCO. ISCO stands for Energy Service Companies, and accredit and capacitate the energy service company, and online tools for the socio-economic and environment analysis for building. And also we have to deal with the energy ratings for the buildings. Now, I will go back again to this issue. Maybe at the end of the discussion, we will utilize the same concept that we've used in Amman, Greater Amman Municipality, in order to give incentives. The incentives to retrofit buildings, it has to be very smart, small interventions in the building. For example, if I am living in a flat around 150 square meter, and I want to minimize my electrical bill, what I have to do, I have two options. Maybe I go to the JRIF, the funds by the Jordan government, and maybe I can go to the GAM municipality to receive what is called the incentives as extra area. The funds, they can provide small funding, because funds actually it has a limited capacity, so we cannot drain the all budget of the fund by the JRIF. That's why we have to focus on what is called giving incentives as extra area to encourage the people to use the building as guidelines in order to use, for example, thermal insulation, or use extra light, LED light, sorry. The third component, which is the performance-based GHG monitoring framework, which is MRV system for building energy codes, develop citywide sectoral NAMA, national appropriate mitigations actions, and we have to assist here JRIF, which is the Jordan Renewable Energy Efficiency Fund, to provide customized financial incentives in order to promote the investments, as I mentioned right now. And also very important things that we have to focus also, which is the identification and the quantification, the effectiveness of different policy and financial, what is called DE, which is de-risking instruments for energy efficiency. As a UNDP, we've developed before a couple of years a policy which is related to renewable energy, which is de-risking policy for renewable energy, but for the energy efficiency is not being developed. We have our mandate in the project to develop what is called de-risking policy in order to encourage the people and the green economy to import what is called the material that is related to the green economy. For example, LED lights, thermal insulation material. We have to encourage by this policy. And dissemination the lesson learned to the other cities in Jordan. And last but not least, proof of concept mitigation interventions. We have to develop as same as any project. We have to develop pilot projects by using codes, the energy efficiency code and thermal efficiency code for new private sectors building in order to measure how much the consumptions has been achieved by the using the latest latest codes for the energy efficiency. And two existing public-private public sectors in Amman retrofit building according to the guidelines. Also, the update the energy efficiency lighting codes and smart usage using for GAM street lights. As a summary, you can find here the summary of my projects. We have to develop a sustainable plan for the city of Amman for 2019 to 2025. We have to develop monitoring framework, MRV system for the how much the reduction, adopting tools and methodology for monitoring energy and water efficiency, water consumptions, energy efficiency lighting, LED, develop training program for energy efficiency codes and high performance using thermal insulation for the building. The incentives is going to be here for the building in order to encourage if we can add extra area or extra floor to compensate the implementation of this. This is for the existing building, but for the new building, it's going to be mandatory. There will be no incentives. Our approach is going to be awareness, regulations, capacity building, partnerships, incentive. This is very approach. And lesson learned regarding renewable energy, energy efficiency, water, waste, green building is going to be disseminated to the other cities of Jordan, because as a GEF and UNDP will start by Amman. And we are trying, if we success in this project, we are trying to expand our mandate to the other cities of Jordan, even for the MENA countries. Sorry for being taking a long time for the presentation, but I have to finish right now. Thank you very much.
Perhaps now it's time to start our Q&A session. Perfect. So here I can read the question for Meqdad. One of our attendees is asking, given the importance of water pumping, which represents in the electricity consumption, are there in place any energy efficiency programs addressing water pumping in Jordan? If Meqdad could give us some insights, that would be great. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. Regarding the water pumping, what we'll try to do in our project, we'll try to solve the issues related to the water efficiency first in order to minimize the consumptions by the buildings. Actually, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that even besides the energy efficiency codes, we want to implement what is called water efficiency codes to minimize the consumptions by the source, by the end user, by the citizens of Amman, to minimize the consumptions. This is one of the solutions, because here in Jordan we are facing the problem of the demand on water is more than the supply. That's why the government of Jordan is dragging the water from the south of Jordan around 350 kilometers, which is Al-Disi aquifer. It's actually beside the border with the Saudi Arabia. And the cost of the pumping of the water to the city of Amman, the capital, and the northern cities of Jordan, is having a very influence on the electrical bill for the government of Jordan. That's why we have to focus as our projects UNDP with the Greater Amman municipality with the water efficiency. For the government's responsibility, they are trying to compensate the pumping electricity bill by renewable energy, which is the wind farm energy and Al-Tafila, and PV projects in the Amman, which is the south of Jordan. That's try to compensate the burdens of the electricity bill. So we have to work on the local level and on the governmental level. That's the responsibility by the Jordan as one unit. to minimize the consumptions and to minimize the consumption by the source or end user. Thank you.
Thank you, Meqdad, for your answer. And actually, this generated another interesting question always on this topic. The attendee was asking furthermore if is there any replacement of old pumps or water supplies motors, and if you could elaborate on this, of course, for energy efficiency.
For the water pumping, actually, the projects for dragging the water from the south of Jordan, this is a new project. That's why the government of Jordan implemented the new technology of the water pumping, which is the type of the pump itself, which is the energy efficient water pumping by what is called VRF, variable frequency regulations of the water pumping. This is more efficient pumping, and it's according to the international standards. But regarding the use, if the questions regarding the water pumping by the end user, no, we don't have any regulations regarding how to transfer the water from the ground floor aquifers to the top on the rooftop on the rooftop of the building. But we'll try to manage it during the updating the codes, of which is the energy and water efficiency codes.
Many thanks, Meqdad, for your very detailed answer to our question. Now we have a question for Olgu. You mentioned about urbanization issues in the Mediterranean areas. So how is it for small and medium-sized cities and big cities, the implementation of energy efficiency projects? Which are the constraints and the differences between small and medium-sized cities and larger cities? Many thanks.
Thank you very much for this great question. Actually, the person who asked the question, so exactly the nuance in that. So of course, like great cities have much more possibilities. And the presentation of Meqdad gave us a good example, right? Like Greater Amman municipality can implement more. That was actually one of the points that I wanted to Meqdad to tell us, not taking the floor from him. But unfortunately, this kind of rich possibilities and projects, we cannot find them in many cities in Jordan. In some countries, the greater cities have much more possibilities because the tax collection is easier for them, and especially there are some industrial activities. So Jordan is one of these countries, yes, and Lebanon is. That has been said. This is only changing in terms of financial mean they have, like financial capacity they have. When we come to the technical capacities or the legal issues and the regulation setbacks that I have mentioned in my presentation, like having right to have loans and dealing with financial bankings, of course, there are not specific regulation different for greater municipalities or small and medium-sized municipalities. And with this answer, I would like to also draw the attention to maybe it's interesting to follow up the initiative that USLLG has started for they call with the name under the name of intermediary cities. So instead of using the old version of small and medium cities, they prefer using the intermediary cities wording, which I completely spurned. Under this initiative, an interesting trend started, especially in the region, and the cities, the intermediate cities, started to have a project, bundled projects, so develop joint projects in order to gather their forces and being all able to attract more resource and more finances to their actions. I hope it was clear, and we'll be happy to follow up if there's more clarification needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And also another interesting differentiation is between rural and urban municipalities, because so far we just mentioned urbanization. What about the urban areas? Olgu, could you elaborate on the implementation of energy efficiency projects in rural areas? Thank you.
This is ambitious for now. This is ambitious for now. Like in the rural areas, energy efficiency projects, I will not able to mention an example from the region right now. I talked to Meqdad and Christina. Please, you hear an example? Please give other example you can give. But unfortunately, so far, examples that we identified are from intermediary cities sometimes, but from urban areas more than the rural areas. I know that maybe Christina can give us an example of energy production. I think she mentioned it briefly in her presentation. If she hears us, I don't know if she's connected again. She has very interesting experience actually about renewable energy production in a rural area. Maybe that will be a good example, but there are really few in the region.
Hello, yes, I'm back. Unfortunately, I was talking about blackouts, and so we are suffering, as we said, from blackouts. So renewable energy and energy efficiency are really considered crucial in Lebanon due to the blackouts we suffer. And now we just experienced it. So excuse me. I don't know where my presentation ended. But what you mentioned, Olgu, is yes, I was talking about Cabrija's model, and this could be considered as a very good example on how PPP could help in implementing renewable energy solutions. And the Cabrija model is considered as a successful model because it shows how the donor and the municipalities can come together. And here the private sector could be substituted, or the donor could be substituted by the private sector. As I said, that Cabrija can enjoys 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, due to a solar farm that was funded by the EU and implemented by UNDP and managed by municipality of Cabrija, through smart meters that were installed to support around 550 homes from green source of energy. And it is a great example to solve power shortage by using net metering system and decreasing carbon emission and saving electricity bill. So all the citizens in the village are shareholders in this solar farm, and each month a deduction in the bill is being done, and a green energy is being produced, so everybody is benefiting. From here, it is a very good example that could be replicated in other municipalities. The private sector, usually municipalities owns lands, and they are not able to invest in these lands. From here, they can give it for the private sector as a kind of a share from the municipality, and the private sector could build this solar farm and hold the investment for 10 years or 20 years, and then everything with all the facility could be returned to be managed either by a new private sector, the same one, or even the municipality.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Christina. Now we have another question from...
I would highlight... Excuse me, I wanted to highlight about a real initiative that it's a new initiative in Lebanon, which is a platform for progress, that it is considered as a civil initiative established this year in Juni with the support of the city of Juni and the Union of Kisirwan to advocate for more PPPs in Lebanon and to raise awareness and help cities to implement PPP projects. This initiative, I'm proud to be member of this initiative. We have other experts, international and national experts. We offer capacity building, and this platform will raise awareness and will help Lebanese cities, and also will play as the kind of a platform for Mediterranean cities. We will be offering solutions for city climate challenges to join us and to help cities identify what solutions are available to them, for whom, and to correctly evaluate their localized value.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Christina, for your insights. We have a question from one of the attendees regarding exactly PPP projects.
Yes.
It's asking if you have already any PPP project with a group of municipalities, so not one municipality by one, but instead kind of bundling projects. And if yes, you could describe and elaborate on this project. Thank you.
Okay, yes, indeed. When I mentioned the Jezin experience, it is not done through one municipality. It is done at the level of a union. And when we say union, the union includes several municipalities. And here we're talking about 18 to 20 municipalities in this union. And they have invested in several ecotourism projects and agro-industrial projects in partnership with the private sector. And it's a purely PPP project where the municipality is a partner with private sectors, with a company that was established from several investors. They did a kind of 3 projects under a PPP format. One of them is called La Maison de la Forêt. It's an ecotourism project. Another project that serves and promotes the pine agriculture and all its derivatives. And a third project, also at a union level, related to olive oil. They promote olive oil and all the industries that comes from oil, soaps, tapenade, and everything. So here, these projects are merely PPP projects between several municipalities, a bundle and a coalition of municipalities under the union and the private sector. And this is considered as best success stories in Lebanon in forming PPP at a local level between group of municipalities. And we hope that this could be replicated. From here, I really asked reputable companies, I asked the donors to come and invest in PPP projects at the municipal level if they don't want to invest at governmental level, because really we have very successful stories to highlight and beneficial experience.
Thank you very much. And in regards of this, do you have any prospects of energy efficiency projects under this format besides for ecotourism, but specifically for energy efficiency?
Exactly, the Cabricha renewable energy that could be also replicated at the private sector level. In Lebanon, we have several sources of renewable energy. We have hydro, we have wind, and we have the sun. So we can implement several projects with the partnership of the private sector and the local level. And we have the mechanism of the net metering is in place and it is running legally. So also we can benefit from energy efficiency, renewable energy, and from lowering the carbon emissions, and from having savings in the bills. Because as we know that in Lebanon, as I mentioned several times, unfortunately, we have blackouts, and they are backed up by diesel generators. And diesel generators are not considered as environmental friendly solution. So we encourage renewable energy solutions. From here, because we have several problems at governmental level, the local level is considered as the safest nest and safest arena to conduct these projects and have them kind of beneficial and serving their purposes. Also, not to forget, because when we talk climate change, it is also important to tackle the waste management issues. I don't know if you heard me or it was kind of cut when I mentioned several also PPP projects at municipal level targeting the waste management process. It is also considered as a climate solution, because in Lebanon we had the crisis of garbage, and several municipalities that were able to partnership with the private sector didn't face this issue. So it is important to highlight these success stories and to replicate them as much as possible. And this is our main role through the webinar, through you as Copenhagen Center, through the UFM, and through all donors, and especially through the new initiative platform that we established to raise awareness, to highlight these success stories, and to replicate them as much as possible.
Thank you very much for your insights on this, Christina. Now it's time for closing our webinar. I want to thank you for the detailed responses to the questions we received, and most importantly, to the attendees. So, ladies and gentlemen, finally, we've come to the end of the webinar, despite our few technical issues. I would like to say thanks to the panelists for the informative and interesting presentations and to the audience for their active participation. The presentation will be beneficial for all the stakeholders involved in energy efficiency. Thank you for the attention, and I wish you a good day or night from Copenhagen.